much, Grace. I feel like though, you probably can only come to this conclusion having had all of the success and what you have had. So I mean, do you think there's a way forward to kind of still have that, using the internet? I mean, what do you see as the way forward to kind of still you play the game and not let it play you, if you get what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. I think first, thank you. I don't want to play the game anymore, if that makes any sense. I'm done with the game. I can't do it. I don't care about hashtags. I signed up for like a social media workshop with a very talented influencer, and I left after like one session. I was like, this is not real. I just can't. If that's what the game requires to succeed, I just don't have it in me anymore. But I know that a world exists outside of all of this. I mean, I meet people every day that I volunteer with who have no idea what anything on social media is, and they live deep, meaningful, important lives. So there's a part of me that just wants to check out completely, but I know that probably won't happen. So I think what I want to do, and what I hope everyone finds a way to do in some way, is use the internet as a conduit, as a connection to people, rather as a replacement for people. I did that for so long. I counted the people and the comments and the feedback online as real life support system, and it's not the same thing. It's valuable, it should be there, but it's not the same thing as the person who will sit with you when something really scary has happened. And I realized when I went through some really big scary stuff, how quickly people disappear online when you're not the person delivering what they've expected from you. I mean, I've watched this happen just in the last month since leaving, just watching people leave in droves looking for the next thing. And so it's important to remember that the people who stick by you, who frankly just don't give a fuck about what you do, those are the people to hold on to. So I hope that the thing that we can all do, whatever stage of our career we're in, is really just use the internet as a conduit and remember that it's not a replacement for talking to people in real life. Because I remember some DMs, but for the most part, I remember conversations in real life a lot more.
Are there some more plans to adopt?
They all went out. I almost stole a small IBM pad from her house, but I felt like I would fully go to hell if I stole it. But Georgine worked at IBM for 50 years, which was based in Kingston, New York for a long time, and she had all of the original IBM notepads, and I saw them all in her house, but they went to her very deserving grandchildren.
Question over here.
Hi, Grace. Thanks so much. So I'm a middle school teacher. These are my wonderful middle school students.
Okay. I'm so sorry.
We love a good F-bomb wherever we
Sorry
can
about
find
that.
it. In our time together, human first is one of the values or tenets that we try to teach the kids. And obviously, being middle schoolers growing up in this time of the internet age is way different than than it was for us when we were middle schoolers. So what would your best advice be to your middle school self, or to these middle school selves, in the age of the internet?
Oh, I was so unhappy in middle school. I briefly came out in middle school and then got forcibly shoved back in the closet. So it was a really uncomfortable time for me, and I very often think about how, frankly, would I even be here if the internet had existed then? Because I remember how difficult it was to survive the barrage of rumors and notes and things that happen, and I think a lot of queer people can relate to experiences like that, and I'm glad that that didn't exist because I don't know if I would be here, period. But I think that when I think about young people today, I think about the way that they think of information so differently. I have a really hard time breaking out of the box that my brain works within when I think of projects. I mean, just thinking about what am I going to do after I leave Design Split, I have no idea. I can't think outside of the box of well, I could get this type of job or work for this company. I have a really hard time thinking outside of the box. Kids don't have that. The internet has given them infinite possibilities, and that is a beautiful, wonderful thing. And if I could go backwards and that existed, I wish I could remind myself of that. That the things that are hard, that happen in person, that feel like the only world you know, are just one of many worlds and examples and places that you could possibly be and thrive. So I would say to people who are younger today, find those communities that are yours. Find those people, even if they are not where you are currently. They will be with you one day. They could be across the world, they could be across the street. Wherever they are, nurture them. And when you have the ability to meet with them in person, meet with them and become friends. Really hang out. Don't just exchange emails. Talk face to face, even if it's on Skype or GChat or whatever much cooler, younger version of that people use. But talk face to face, and I think a lot of that phrase, it gets better, and sometimes that's a really shoddy Band-Aid for a lot of bad feelings when you can't get out of those for a long time. But sometimes the internet can be that escape and that community, so don't forget that it can build community.
Okay, one more question.
This side is underrepresented.
Hi. I really appreciate your wisdom, and I'm 28 years old, and I have always looked at bloggers or people that have a really large presence on the internet, and I've looked up to them because you get to share your message around the world, and you have such a following, and you really can share your passion. And I have always aspired to do that, and I do that in ways. And I want to book speaking gigs, and I want to spread a message. And when you talk about stepping away from it, I mean, the anxiety is real. You try to put your phone down for a day, there's real anxiety. And so my question is, what is your advice for somebody that aspires to share a global message or to really get something out there across the world where you can't sit down with every single person, but remove yourself from the internet in a healthy dose? Or how do you build something like this not using the internet?
Yeah. I think the internet is a necessary tool for a lot of things. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's just not as good as talking in person, but it's a valuable tool. So I don't think there's any way we'll ever escape from it. It's going to eventually take over all of our lives. But I think the thing I think about is that anxiety. First, I go to a lot of therapy, so pick apart that anxiety. Figure out what that really comes from, and it's very uncomfortable to sit in those feelings of what am I feeling when I'm not on Instagram. And for me, when I did that, I realized how much affirmation I was getting from Instagram, and that if I didn't get that in my real life, I needed to figure out why, and why I needed so much of it in the first place. So picking that stuff apart is really important. But I think to answer your question more directly, the phrase think globally, act locally, as cheesy as that is very true. I think a lot of us get swept up in the idea that our ideas are so important and our messages are so important that everyone in the world needs to know them. Start where you are. There are lots of people who need things you don't even know about, who are living in your town or your area or within a community that shares identity factors with you. Start in those places. Every project I've done that I led with an idea I thought people needed to hear was mostly myself and mostly ego. And when I started to learn to undo that, and I still fall in that trap all the time, I listened first, and I just paid attention to people and heard what they needed and what was really important. That led to work that stuck with me. And the more that I did work that stuck with me, that was meaningful, the less I cared about how far my message spread. So I think rather than looking for the solution to getting to a larger number of people, try to undo the need to reach that many people first. Because one person, one conversation is something that can make the world of a difference. Tina talking to me 7 years ago, that one conversation for an hour completely changed the way I worked and lived as a person forever going forward. And she didn't need to spread that message globally. She just had to talk to me one-on-one. So start there.